question.
Sure.
I'm Marcia. I'm from California in the United States. Um, so I was doing the practice, and what I find is that my natural tendency is to bring in and feel the energy up, and then exhale and bring the energy down instead of the other direction. And so I've made it a point of really focusing on my heart when I breathe in, and my head when I breathe out, like really making that happen. And I'm just wondering if you think, with regard to the practice, if that matters, as long because the pause is there on both ends.
Important are the poses. Sure, in the Vijnana Bhairava, they said because the air goes down, then the point is there, but I know what you mean, and sure, it feels like more easily to imagine that when you inhale, you go up, and when you exhale, you go down. I think the important thing is the pause. If you are aware, because at some point you can be aware of the pause always in the heart, regardless if it's at the end of the exhalation or at the end of inhalation. So, because again, the heart is not in the physical realm, so
that part doesn't really matter.
Yes, in a way.
Thank you.
Someone asked if there are any Shaivism temples, I think he wants to say, in Kashmir. I think there are. I don't know for sure, because Kashmir was, and it's still disputed between India and Pakistan, and was under Muslim rule for a long period of time, but I think there are still. I don't think they are disappeared overnight, so I don't know for sure. And again, this Kashmir Shaivism, which we spoke about, was not the kind of Shaivism that was did in a temple, more like in the inner temple of the heart. So someone says that I am reading Tantra Illuminated by Christopher Wallis. Any thought on this book? Any other recommended readings? I'm not a panel. Rinke Hendrickson. Just a minute. Rinke. Okay. I promoted you. Yes, Tantra Illuminated is a good book. Christopher Wallis is a scholar in this field, so he tries to write good about it. So, and also he has another book about Pratyabhijna Hridaya, a book of Kshemaraja, good book. And I think all the books about Shaivism are good, but sure, you have to read between the lines a lot. Some are very dense, but in my experience reading, it's not about mental understanding, but about opening the heart to the teachings. So just being open and reading, it's a wonderful experience. Even if a lot of books are scholarly and hard to feel with the heart, still reading about it opens the heart. Good books are in French. The books of Lilian Silburn or André Padoux, they write more with the heart, even if other scholars are not quite satisfied with them in the way they translate things. You are feeling more this opening of the heart. Some other question. In the last class you mentioned the 12 kalis. There is a English translation for reading about that. I am not very sure. I'm still in the process to cover all the books that are written on the Shaivism. I didn't find one to really write about that. I read some books in French. Lilian Silburn again wrote a book called The Hymns of Kali, and there in that book you can find a lot of information about 12 Kalis. So Lilian Silburn, hymns I don't know in French, hymns to Kali. It's a good book about this and a lot of information there. And I think again Scribd it's a good resource for this, even if it's a gray site. So yeah, it has a paid subscription, but these kind of books are not in a, you understand what kind of things are. But if you want to read them, there it's a good start. These hymns to Kali. Another question, can you speak about the relation between Karma Yoga and Kashmir Shaivism? At some point, yes, because we will speak about the 5 actions of Shiva, and one of them is Kriya action, and in that context we will speak about Karma Yoga. And another question, whenever I direct my mind from the end of my spine to up to my neck and sometimes to the crown, I create a nice tingling or rapture feeling, and can do it again and again whenever I focus my attention on it. Can you explain what is this specific? I cannot explain it. Sure, there are some possible explanations, but I am not very sure. I think a discussion to explain more and understand more it's necessary for this kind of thing, because just from the little things that you are explaining, it's not enough to form a good idea. Another question, is the heart synonymous with presence? Yes and no. Yeah, to be in the heart, it means to be present, but the heart, it's more like the essence of our being. Presence, you can be present just paying attention to what is. Sure, you wrote presence with capital P, so maybe if it's capital P, it's the same. So I think one more thing. What do we know about Abhinavagupta going into a cave with 1000 disciples? We know where they went. I think they know the cave that they speak about, but it's not very sure that he actually did that. It's more like a legend, so it's not known for sure that he did that, with going with 1000 disciples in the cave. They didn't find anything that corroborate with this story in that cave, so it's more like a tradition, like the same is with the stone on which Shiva Sutras were written. The stone is there, but the Shiva Sutras are not, so it's like reverence to that symbol, but not like it's actually there. So with this, we are not knowing for sure if he actually did that or not. At that point, it's like, because about Abhinavagupta are not many things known, even if his writings are very appreciated in philosophy, in the aesthetics, but his life is more like a mystery, and the little things that we know are from the stories that he tells in his books and his disciples tell about him. But at some point we will speak about Abhinavagupta more. We will continue now with our lesson, which for me it's a very beautiful thing, and I'm excited to speak you about it, because it's about concept or a form of meditation called bhavana. And sure, any other question we will answer in the end. About bhavana. Bhavana, it's a very interesting thing, because usually you are not finding about it in the books. It's not like some other Sanskrit words that were not translated and let them be like this. Usually it is translated, and it is translated in a way that you are not are aware about it. So usually it's translated like contemplative meditation, creative intention, meditative realization, even meditation in Buddhism. But you will see it's a special form of meditation, and apart that it's a traditional form of meditation, we will speak about bhavana in Yoga Sutras or in other old writings. It's also an important part of the way that it is meditated in Kashmir Shaivism. So the word itself, bhavana, means production, creation, or an action that it's expressed by a verb. So doing, the act of doing, it's bhavana. Also means creative imagination, mental creation, imagination. It can also mean the power of speech, devotion, faith. So you see, it's a very complex thing, and I hope that until the end of this lesson you will appreciate it and love it as much as I do, and appreciate this kind of using meditation to go deeper in the reality and in the reality of your heart. So we will start with Yoga Sutra. The first place where it is used is in the Sutra 28 from the first chapter. The first chapter is Samadhipada, the way of Samadhi. And there, at some point, Patanjali speaks about Om, the mantra. And in this 28th sutra, he says like this: its repetition and the contemplation of its meaning should be performed. So in this sutra, sure, Patanjali speaks about japa. Japa, it's a very used method in traditional yoga practice. It's that repeating of the mantra using a mala, like that kind of Rudraksha malas, and repeating the mantra over and over and over again. So this mentioning of japa is not something special, but Patanjali says that it's not enough to just repeat the mantra. You have to keep the meaning in your mind. And this contemplation of its meaning, actually, it's the translation of the word bhavana. So in this case, it's a thing that a lot of us didn't think about it. When you repeat a mantra, it's not like a mechanical process to obtain the fruits of those words, of those powerful words. you have to aim to have a goal in that practice. And Om, it's a good example because it is used in Buddhism and Mahavidya Tantra, in classical yoga, in Vedanta, in a lot of places. So in this context of Yoga Sutras, Om is the word that invokes God. It's like, is the name of God. If you want to call God by his name, you utter Om. Yes, it's like this in Yoga Sutras. But if you want God to answer, you have to keep this meaning in your mind when you repeat Om. I calling God, I am calling Ishvara. It's not enough just to say Om, 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 because nothing actual happen if you don't have this meaning in your mind. If you practice Mahavidya Tantra, there it's about Tara. It's a mantra to open yourself to Tara, to the wisdom of compassion. So when you utter Om, you have to keep this thing in mind. In Buddhism, it's about quieting the mind, so you have to keep this quieting the mind to obtain this by uttering Om. So it's important to have this intention, to have this clear direction of your japa. Otherwise, it's not like nothing is happening, but it's not happening like you want to. And this is important to understand bhavana, because bhavana is this creative intention. It's opening yourself to this possibility of manifesting this energy or that state of consciousness or any other thing. So this was the first time in Yoga Sutras. Then another place where it's mentioned, it's the 33 Sutra of the first chapter, which says like this: by cultivating an attitude of friendship towards those who are happy, compassion towards those in distress, joy towards those who are virtuous, and equanimity towards those who are non-virtuous, lucidity arises in the mind. Sure, I use a translation, maybe is not the best, but it's a good enough one. So in this sutra, Patanjali speaks about those Brahma Vihara. Brahma Vihara are the things that are getting you to the realm of Brahma. It's about Maitri. Maitri is this loving kindness, Karuna, which is compassion, Mudita, which is joy, and Upekshanam, which is equanimity. These are the four Brahma Viharas. They are also present in Buddhism. But what Patanjali says here, it's this cultivating an attitude. This is bhavanat or bhavanatah. Again, what you have to do is, if you want to obtain Maitri, that loving kindness or friendship, you have to keep it in your heart, keep it present. Again, in the bhavana, they say that it's about imagination, but it's not like you imagine loving kindness. In your heart, there is loving kindness. Bhavana is just opening to this thing that already is in your heart and let it be. And in this way, it's like you create that thing, but it is already in you. It's not something new. It's not like imagining, oh, I don't have any loving kindness, but if I imagine with enough power, some loving kindness will appear. No, that loving kindness, it's in your heart. You just open to the possibility of manifesting that loving kindness. So this is cultivation. You let that which is in your heart to exist, to manifest. I want to make this difference, to understand that is not something that you imagine, but it's something that already exists, but you didn't let it manifest until then. So it's this opening to the possibility of that thing. So in this sutra, Patanjali says, okay, if you want that, just open yourself to this possibility and let it be. Loving kindness, it's already in you, let it be. Compassion, it's already in you, let it be. Joy, it's already in you, let it be. Equanimity, it's already in you, let it be. And then another place where this bhavana appears, and sure, it's just, it's not very important, but it's another place. It's in the second chapter, second sutra, where in the second chapter, Patanjali speaks about Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga, which is composed by tapas, ardor, passion in practice, svadhyaya, study of yourself, svadhyaya, and Ishvara Pranidhana, surrender to God. And in this second sutra, after he presented that yoga in action, he said that it's for bringing about samadhi and for weakening the afflictions. Afflictions are those 5 kleshas, those causes of suffering, and in this sutra, bringing about, it's bhavana. Bhavana, in this case, it's about making samadhi manifest. So again, it's about I already am in samadhi, but I don't let this samadhi manifest. So opening myself to this, it's part of this Kriya Yoga. And then another place where this bhavana appears, and this is very important in the classical yoga tradition, it's the place where in the 33rd sutra of second chapter, where Patanjali says, upon being harassed by negative thoughts, one should cultivate counteracting thoughts. And this is an important concept in Yoga Sutras. It's called Pratipaksha Bhavana. Pratipaksha means this opposed thought. So if you are sad and feeling down, you have to open yourself to joy. This is Pratipaksha Bhavana. Open yourself to the opposite of your negative state of mind. Sure, it's not that easy, because if it was that easy, yeah, we will be all happy and full of joy. But every time something disturbs our inner peace, we have to do this Pratipaksha Bhavana to cultivate the opposite. And he continues this idea in the 34th sutra, saying that negative thoughts are violence, etc. They may be personally performed by one's behalf by another, authorized by oneself. They may be moderate, extreme in intensity, or one should cultivate counteracting thoughts, namely that the end results of the negative, sorry, I'm lost. So one should cultivate counteracting thoughts, because otherwise the end result of the negative thoughts are ongoing suffering and ignorance. So you have to do this pratipaksha bhavana, because otherwise you will continue to suffer and be in that ignorance. Again, in Yoga Sutras and in the yoga tradition, the root cause of suffering is this ignorance. Ignorance not in the sense that you don't know something, because otherwise it will be easily resolved. Someone will tell you what you have to know, or you read it in the book. But it's ignorance in existence, in an existential way of being. Ignorance meaning that you are knowing in a wrong way who you are. It's not like you don't know who you are, but you are identifying yourself with the wrong thing, like body, mind, emotions. So you say, I am sad. It's like you are sadness, but you are not sadness. You are just experience sadness for a moment. I am happy. You are not happiness, but just for a moment you experience happiness, and so on and so forth. So this is ignorance. If you are not doing this pratipaksha bhavana, then the ignorance continues. And sure, in Yoga Sutras it's important, because it's like a practice. Every time you experience something which is not good, you think about the opposite and cultivate opening yourself to that possibility and manifest it. And sure, there is another sutra in the fourth and the last chapter of Yoga Sutras, in the 25th sutra, and there he says, like, for the one who sees the distinction between the mind and the soul, between the mind and the consciousness, reflecting on the nature of the self, cease. So you don't have to practice bhavana anymore if you know who you are. Like, this is the thing that Patanjali says. If you know who you are, if you make this discernment between the appearance, mind, body and such, and Atma, your true self, then you don't have to meditate anymore. You don't have to do this bhavana. So these are the things that are present in Yoga Sutra. And to resume, to synthesize the things, so it's important to have this intention when you practice. Patanjali says when you practice japa, when you practice the repetition of a mantra, but it's important regardless of the spiritual practice that you do. So when you sit in meditation, you sit in Hridaya, you sit for knowing who you are. You are not just sitting. Sure, if you practice Zen, you can say, I'm just sitting there and doing nothing. But even then, you have this intention, and you will see bhavana, it's interesting because it's not like you have to clarify that intention. You just have to have it. It's not like you are sitting and expressing, I am sitting here to know my true self and to do that and this, and it's not like this. It's like, I want to be there, and you feel that intention, that aspiration, that desire in a way to reach that knowledge. Second place where sure, when I found out about bhavana, it's not like I didn't use bhavana in my practice, but it's like that recognition that we spoke about in the last meeting, where yeah, you know about your future spouse a lot of things, but you never meet him, and when you meet him, you don't recognize him until something clicks. And sure, for me, bhavana clicked in the Shaiva context, but then looking about this concept, I saw that it's present in a lot of places. And one unexpected places, it's in the teachings of Ramana. Sure, Ramana, when he spoke directly about bhavana, he referred to the imagination thing, and he said Atman is not imagination, it's real. You don't have to imagine that you are Atma, you are Atman, you are yourself. It's not like you have to imagine this. But in his recommendation, he often recommended this Ribujita. Ribujita is a old text about spirituality. The name means the song of the sage Ribu. This sage received the knowledge from Paramashiva, from the Supreme Shiva, Supreme Lord. Actually, it's a part, this Ribujita, it's a part of a much bigger text called Sri Shiva Rahasya. It's a big text, like 100,000 verses long. It's like a lot of text in Indian tradition. And this Ribu, this sage, was a son of the Brahma, the creator Brahma, not Brahman, the transcendent God, but Brahma, the creator. And from birth, he was very dispassionate, and his father wanted him to be a progenitor or head of a family, to have children and live a family life, but he didn't want this, and he had gone to Himalayas where he meditated a lot until Shiva sees him in this meditation, and Shiva taught Ribu Atma Vidya, the knowledge of the self. And the tradition said that in that moment Ribu recited this Ribujita. So, like I said, Ramana Maharshi often recommended recitation of this text, to recite it in group or alone, because it awakens in the person this yearning for the heart, for the knowledge of the self and opening the heart. And in this you will see another way to look at the bhavana, and actually it's a way that it's used even in Kashmir Shaivism. So these are extracted from shortened version of Ribujita. So the first, it's I will not tell you every chapter and sutra because it will be hard for me to say all the numbers, and is not important. I will just read you the text. So the bhavana, I am Brahman, I am self, swiftly takes you to mukti, to liberation. As the continued reading of the text generating that bhavana takes the aspirant unerringly to the goal, he should always dwell on the written words dealing with Brahman self. So this sutra says like this: the bhavana, the idea, I am Brahman. You know, it's that saying in Vedanta, Aham Brahma Asmi, I am Brahman. So this saying that you open yourself to takes you very fast to the mukti. Mukti means liberation, the highest experience, the highest consciousness. And further, the sutra says that if you reading text that speaks about this I am Brahman, helps you to maintain this bhavana, to maintain this idea. Because sure, the translation it's in that old way to phrase, and I think it's a little bit cryptic. The next one says like this: the illusion that once one is the body and that the world is the basic reality has remained soaked over a long time and cannot be got rid of by the casual reading and the mere understanding of the truth. The basic illusion can be effaced only by a long and unremitting practice of the bhavana that all this is I am Brahman self. So again, translation of the translation. The illusion that we are the body and the world is the only reality, the things that we can see with our eyes are the only reality. It's something that we maintain in our mind for a long period of time. So from birth, we are accustomed to understand that we are the body and the world is only thing that is. So if you are just reading about, okay, you are not the body, you are the self, you are Brahman, it's not enough. You have to do this practice of bhavana. Again, bhavana meaning opening to the reality that you are Brahman is the only way that you can erase this illusion of I am the body, I am the world. So everything is only a concoction of time, space, and energy. All else is a trite talk of people who dislike the effort of sadhana, which takes them to the self. This talk is based on their dense ignorance of the self. Only by persistent practice and experience of sadhana can one arrive at the truth that all concepts of soul, world, and the cause thereof are just evanescent shadows of the screen of Shiva self Brahman, on the screen of Shiva self Brahman. So this sutra is speaking about that metaphor in which Shiva self Brahman is the white screen on which the movie of this world is projected. Sure, in the time in which Ribujita was written, there are no movies, but they had that shadow theater in which on a screen they projected shadows to make a theatrical play. So for them, the metaphor is still valid in this regard. So Shiva self Brahman is this screen on which the world is projected, the play of the world. And I think you get the gist. There are more sutras that insist on this idea. You have to practice this bhavana, I am Brahman, I am self. All thoughts and feelings of differentiation of self and non-self will drop, and you will be permanent in this Brahman self if you keep this bhavana. So because it's a lot of quoting from this Ribujita that again and again in different chapters, in different sutras, came back to this idea. It's like, sure, it's the same process in which you identify yourself with the body. You tell yourself, I am this body. I am looking in the mirror and I see myself, and I am this and I am that, because I see this reflection and I identify myself with this reflection. This is also a kind of bhavana, but it's like a reverse bhavana. It keeps you in the illusion of these appearances. So when you practice this kind of meditation, you open yourself to the true existence. And we will see further what it's said about this in Shaivism, where again it's usually seen like a creative identification with the content of the contemplation. What this means, it's like I want to contemplate the consciousness. So I don't think about consciousness, I try to be consciousness, opening myself to this being that consciousness. Just thinking about it keeps this duality happening. Duality between me, the one who is doing this contemplation, and the object of that contemplation. Bhavana means, okay, I am that object in the sense that it's consciousness. So Abhinavagupta says in Tantra Loka is the big treaty that Abhinavagupta wrote about Tantra, and it's a synthesized the Kashmir Shaivism. And there he says like this: just as he who thinks intensely, I am a sinner, truly becomes one, so he who thinks I am Shiva, I am nothing else but Shiva, becomes Shiva himself. This certainty that permeates the mind and the heart corresponds to a state that is free from mentalization, a state that is reached through a series of conceptualization, thus leading to complete unity with Shiva. So in this regard, what Abhinavagupta says is, sure, from just reading this, you can think, okay, it's like a suggestion. I repeat, I am Shiva, and something will happen. But again, the simple repetition in the mind of some words, it's not enough. It's about this opening to the possibility, to this opening to being that reality. I don't know exactly how it is, but I am open. And again, it's about this intention. I want, desire to be like that. I don't know how, but I just want to. And this openness, it's what makes bhavana possible. So there are some questions, and maybe it's so. Someone asked, is Patanjali Sutras part of Kashmir Shaivism? No, it's like Kashmir Shaivism, it's aware of the Patanjali Sutras, and Patanjali Sutras were part of spiritual practice, and you have to know them if you are interested in spirituality. Yoga Sutras were written around 200 Common Era CE, and Shaivism flourished around 8, 9, 10 centuries, so much later. And it's not the same, but the concepts that are used usually in Shaiva, in Kashmir Shaivism, are refined. You will see the next lesson when we will speak about tattvas. In Patanjali's sutras, there are only 25, like in Sankhya. In Shaivism, there are 36, so 11 more. And they are acknowledge the Sankhya tattvas and Yoga Sutras tattvas, but they say, okay, there is more to reality than was in Patanjali's. It's not like the Patanjali was like lower than Shaivism, but it's like where Patanjali said from this it's up. Kashmir Shaivism, yes, it's up, but it still has some stages, and we want to learn about them. Yes, so it's not like if you are experiencing Nirvikalpa Samadhi from the Patanjali, you are not realized being in Kashmir Shaivism. I hope it's clear. Another question. I have the same request. I am unable to perform any of those suggestions as I am just a viewer, not a panelist. Can you see if you can adjust that from the host settings? Okay, the small window. Okay. I don't know. Do you see me bigger now?
I don't think everybody is having that problem. I see you just fine. So I don't think it's going to be on your end. It's probably on the viewer.
Maybe it's a problem with Zoom. You have to go to the view and there check the speaker view. When you check the speaker view, you will see the image of the one who is speaking big on the screen, nothing else. Hope that this helps you. Okay, someone is it's playing with the buttons. Some from the panelists. Okay, someone I think checked follow host view. So what I view is what you view. Maybe this was the problem. I checked the speaker view. Hope for those who have the problem it's resolved. Okay. Everybody says that it's working, so we found it. Okay, someone also asked, is bhavana important if I practice Laya Yoga, for example, with the bija mantra of the cosmic power, then I listen to the subtle sound? Yes, because you have to keep that openness in your heart to the Mahavidya that you are practicing with, cosmic power, like you said. So even if you say the mantra, you have to think about, okay, it's not like think about, but keeping in your heart, it's about, I don't know, it's about Kali. I am uttering this mantra because I want to be one with Kali. I don't say this mantra just to say the mantra or to do anything, but I want to do this. It's not like you have to think it, but you have to have this intention. I hope that the more I speak, the more clear will be. This is the reason that I want you to continue to ask questions, because otherwise I don't know if you get the meaning. For this reason, I prefer to just interrupt the presentation and ask some questions, because sometimes the questions are more revealing than the So someone asked, how do you advise performing bhavana, like I am consciousness or I am Shiva, when I don't actually feel this way? I feel wrong. It feels wrong to me to do so. The practice today will be something like this. We will practice the bhavana Chidananda Rupah Shivoham Shivoham. It's a classical saying in poem by Shankaracharya that Sahaja often recites during the retreats, which means I am consciousness and bliss without form, I am Shiva, I am Shiva. And we will speak about how to do this, and I think then will be more easy to understand how to do it. And I will try to speak less and let the practice be longer. Just some other things about this to be more clear. I spoke a lot about Vijnana Bhairava. I hope you are aware that Sahaja is giving a workshop called The Art of Awareness, which it's about this Vijnana Bhairava. He explains a lot of practices and do a lot of practices from Vijnana. So if you want to go deeper in that, you can try to reach this workshop. Let us go back to what it means, this bhavana. Usually there are two metaphors that are used by Abhinavagupta and by Somananda, two masters of Shaivism. Abhinavagupta is saying about bhavana. Bhavana is like a father that sees his child in danger and want to save the child. He just acts. He doesn't think, oh, maybe I do that, maybe I do that. He doesn't stay in this kind of doubt and think about what is the best action to do. He just go and act with this clear intention, I want to save my child. He doesn't think about how, but he wants to do it. I think already mentioned that experience that at some point was very famous, in which a mother had his child in a car accident, and she just go to the car and rip off the door from the car, And all the people were amazed. How? Because it's a small person, it's a woman. How did she rip open the door? And for sure, if she was thinking, oh, it's that door, I cannot get it off, and my child is there, what to do? Maybe call 911 or 112 in Europe to the child were in problem. But she just go and act and did the job. So sure, when Abhinavagupta said this, it's a common experience. Often we want to do something and we don't think how to do that, just do it. And sure, there is a lot of possibility to explain this, but the bhavana is like this. I want to reach that experience and I don't think about how, I just think or open myself to that possibility. Is this intention that I already told you about? And the other metaphor that Somananda gives, it's the way when you forgot about a word. You forgot a word and you try to remember. Maybe better, you forgot how someone you forgot what the name of a person is. Yes, it works with the word, but it's more often to forget what the name of a person is. And you want to remember. You want very much to remember. And a lot of names or words arise in your consciousness, but you instantly know that that is not the name, that is not the word that I don't remember. You don't have to stay in doubt. Maybe it's the name, I don't know. No, you instantly know. It's, Somananda says, you feel it in your heart. You feel it in your heart that is not the name, but when there is the name or the word that you forgot, you instantly recognize that and you feel it in your heart. So again, when you try to achieve this kind of experience, it's like that opening, that openness of the heart allows you to recognize when that experience is achieved. Until that is like in Vedanta, neti neti, naiti naiti, not this, is not this. Maybe it's this. Yes, another experience arises. It's not this, because your heart doesn't recognize it. And you see in Hridaya, it's very important because often appears a beautiful experience. You feel like love and expansion of consciousness and you feel very good. But in your heart, you know this is not it. Naiti, neti neti is not this. And you still search, who am I? Who am I? And for sure something else appear and you feel good and much better. But again, your heart is not satisfied until the truth is revealed. So in a way, this is also bhavana. And I mentioned Ramana Maharshi. One of his first experiences, it's a bhavana. You remember the first time when he started to ask himself the question, who am I? He actually sit on the bed and he said, I imagined that I am dead. But you see, it wasn't a simple imagination that his body was dead. He was actually the experience that his body was dead. And this experience that his body was dead allowed him to understand that he is more than the body, and to ask himself, okay, if I'm not the body, who am I? So in that experience, he didn't just imagine things. He actually opened himself to the experience of death of the body, and in this way had that revelation that, okay, I am more than the body. And then he started that search that eventually get him to the revelation of the spiritual heart of Atman. So you see, in this way, bhavana act is not just a mental imagination, a story that mind tells us about. Because if it was just a story, he just sit there and thought, okay, my body is dead and my relative cries over my body, and they will take my body to the cremation ground and such and such. If it was just a story, nothing happened. Nothing will happen. But he lived in a way in this kind of bhavana, in this kind of creative contemplation. He lived through the death of his body. Sure, in the physical realm, nothing happened. The body wasn't dead in that point. But for the consciousness, for the awareness, it was like the body was dead, and the opening to the spiritual realm was possible. And again, in Shaivism, bhavana it's used in various ways, because especially if you look at Vijnana Bhairava, there are a lot of moments in which you have to put yourself in that situation, be in that situation, not just imagine the situation. For this reason, they say that bhavana, it's about the energy. So there is this difference between the usual meditation, in which you concentrate your mind towards the object of your choosing, which can be the heart or some image of God or a yantra or something. So you have to concentrate your mind again and again. Your mind wanders, you bring it back to the object of attention and such and such. And this, it's like a process in which you refine your mind and open your mind to the subtler and subtler possibilities. And bhavana, which means this opening to the possibility, is like letting the energy manifest itself in the object, in what you are paying attention to. I cannot speak about this enough, because there are some ideas that we will get to later, because what is specific to bhavana is this kind of fuzziness of the intention. And for this reason, it's different from usual kind of meditation, because this intention to reach the goal, the thing that you want to reach, doesn't have to be expressed clearly. So like someone says, okay, I don't know how it's to be Shiva. Maybe Shiva is something that doesn't sit well with me, so doesn't help me. But in this case, you just open to the possibility that, again, Shiva is just the name for the consciousness. So if you are having something against the name, it's not a problem. Just don't say the name. Open yourself to consciousness, because it's not about the name, but what it means, what that name refers to. Is that metaphor in Zen, in which they said that the teaching is like a finger pointing to the moon. Sure, if you just look at the finger, you have a problem, because there are many fingers and the moon is between them, and this finger points like this finger points like this, and there is conflict between them if you look at the fingers. But if you look at the moon, everything is clear and simple. So bhavana means just looking directly to the moon. Don't worry about the fingers. Yes. In this regard, we can call bhavana a mystical intuition. Mystical because usually in the mystical realm, it's about experience. You live things. You don't need too much explanation about them. And again, it's an intuition. It's like something you know, but you don't express it in a logical way. Usually intuition works like this: I just know a thing. Sure, afterwards, after this knowing appear, I can explain and find some reason about that knowing, but in the moment, I just know. So in a way, bhavana is like this: letting intuition work its way towards our goal. And sure, in Shaivism, they speak about this kind of, they say bhavana uses vikalpa. Vikalpa is like thoughts, but it's not like verbal, like word thoughts, but like an inner image. And they say, sure, if you have to have a thought, why not be the thought that I am consciousness, I am Shiva? Again, if you are against the name, just think about consciousness. And I hope it's clear enough. The time run very fast. I will try to explain now what we will do with this Chidananda Rupah Shivoham Shivoham. First of all, I will read you the poem of Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya wasn't a Kashmir Shaivit, but was a Shaivit. And this Shivoham, even if he's not from Kashmir Shaiva, it's still Shaiva. Sure, it's part of that Shaiva Siddhanta, of that tradition from which Kashmir Shaivism evolved. someone asked, is bhavana expressing through spanda? When there is spanda, there is bhavana as well, isn't it? But bhavana can also express itself silently and quietly. Yes, spanda is the energy of consciousness, and for sure, to bring to life this experience, you need that energy of consciousness, because it's about, again, it's about this inner energy of the heart, which is spanda. When you want to experience that Shivoham, which we will do now, and again, we will get back to this concept of bhavana later in our lessons, because it will become more interesting after we will understand the level of the world, of the word, where we will understand that bhavana is that place in which things are not expressed but still there as an intention. When we understand these energies of Shiva, in which Icha, the desire, plays an important role, we will get back to this idea and go deep, because again, it's something that can really help us to go deeper and deeper in our practice. So this poem of Shankaracharya is called Nirvana Shatkam, 6 verses about Nirvana, and it's a Vedantic way of putting the things, and it says like this: I am not the intellect, nor the thoughts, nor the ego, nor the mind. I am not the hearing, nor the taste, nor the smell, nor the sight. I am not the ether, not the earth, nor the fire, nor the air. I am consciousness and bliss without form. I am Shiva, I am Shiva. I am not the life force, nor the 5 vital ethers. I am not the 7 constituents of the body, nor its 5 sheets. I am not the 5 organs of action. I am consciousness and bliss without form. I am Shiva, I am Shiva. I am neither aversion nor attraction, neither avidity nor estrangement. I know not greed, delusion, pride, or envy. I have no obligation, no interest, no wishes, no passions. I am consciousness and bliss without form. I am Shiva, I am Shiva. For me, there are not good action nor bad action, nor pleasure, nor suffering. There exist no ritual incantations, sacred places, Vedas, or sacrifices. I am neither pleasure nor the object of pleasure, nor the agent of pleasure. I am consciousness and bliss without form. I am Shiva, I am Shiva. I know no death, no doubt, no caste differences. I have no father, no mother, because I am unborn. I have no friends, no relatives, no master, no disciples. I am consciousness and bliss without form. I am Shiva, I am Shiva. I am eternal, unchanging, and without form. Through my ubiquitous, I exist everywhere. I am not attached to the sense organs, and that is why I have no desires at all. I know not freedom nor slavery. I am consciousness and bliss without form. I am Shiva, I am Shiva. So this is the poem of Shankara, which again expresses this on, in a way, all the things that I can identify with and which I am not. And what am I? And he says that I am consciousness and bliss. And our bhavana will focus on this I am consciousness and bliss. Sure, in Vedantic tradition, they say Sat Chitananda, pure existence, pure consciousness, pure bliss. But when he speaks I am, he expresses his existence. And then he identifies himself with this consciousness and bliss. Chidananda Rupach can be translated with this without form. I am consciousness and bliss, but I have no form. Or my true self, my inner nature is consciousness and bliss. And what we will do during this period of meditation, it's opening ourselves to this consciousness and bliss. What do they mean? And we try to answer not by creating a story about what is consciousness, what is bliss, what it means to feel bliss, or what it means to be aware of, be conscious, but trying to live, to understand through this mystical intuition, through this bhavana, to understand consciousness and bliss, happiness that is beyond the usual understanding, because usually we understand happiness, I'm happy because of, and we have to have a reason for happiness. But bliss, it's happiness without cause, without reason, just the way we are. Our true form, our true nature is bliss. And we try to understand this by bhavana, by opening ourselves to this possibility, to this reality. Because for sure, Atman, our most inner existence, is this consciousness and bliss. But we have to make it manifest, to bring it to the surface of our awareness. And sure, Shivoham, Shivoham, I am Shiva, it's more like a devotional expression. I am not just a devotee of a deity, but I am God itself. This is what Shankara says. I am not just in a duality relation with some God, some thing, but I am godlike. I am Shiva when I am consciousness and bliss without form, or when my inner nature is consciousness and bliss. If you have question before we start to do this. Someone asked if I can type the words for this in Sanskrit. For sure I can try, but I don't know how to make them. Please share the poem with us after to keep or name again so I find myself. So it's called Nirvana Shatkam. I will write again on this whiteboard. The way that it's spelled, it's sometimes different, but Google will recognize. Again, usually the problem is that they use this English transliteration, which is not the standard way to transliterate Sanskrit, but it's good enough to find things on Google. Another question, is there a difference between the space of consciousness and the Atman, our essence, the heart? Like there is the space of consciousness and still there is the ground of our being. Yes, it's a subtle difference, and we will speak more about these subtle differences between the way we experience things, because sure, when we close the eyes, that inner space that we see with our eyes closed is sometimes called the space of consciousness. But the space of the heart implies that presence. We are in, or we are the heart. It's like we are there. And in a way, it's outside of this realm, in a way. It's like, it's hard to express it very well for the mind to understand. But it's like this. So sure, at first the space of consciousness, it's this kind of space that we experience when we close our eyes and our senses. But then the space of the consciousness, it's the way our consciousness is at some point. And we will see this when we will speak about tattvas, the principles of reality, because we have layers of consciousness. We have this ahamkara, which means the ego, which is the I connected with the world, the material world. We have purusha, which it's also I, aham, but it's connected with the divine realm. And we have Shiva, which is the supreme consciousness. And the way we experience the world, it's about where our consciousness is in that moment. It's the same aham, is the same I, but at first it's constrained by some limitation, but then some limitation are lifted and we are experience higher consciousness, and then all the limitations are lifted and we have divine consciousness. But for Shaiva, for Kashmir Shaivism, is the same I in various stages of his presence in the world. And we will see this more when we speak about tattvas, because there we will explain this limitation that are imposed on the divine consciousness or supreme consciousness or cosmic consciousness. Again, it's just about names. But we experience this presence by opening our awareness and not moving the mind in. Is that correct? Yes, it's not about moving the mind, but going beyond the mind. So if we really want to speak about the space of consciousness, that Chit Akasha, or the space of the heart, Hrit Akasha, we have to go beyond the mind. The mind is like the, if you remember, we spoke about that metaphor of the movie screen. The mind is the movie on the screen. You have to remove the movie to see the screen, or to be aware, to open your awareness to see the screen and not the movie. Or sure, it's a limited metaphor because you are the screen, but understand that if the movie is running, it's very hard to see the screen or to be aware of the screen, because the images of the mind are grabbing your attention. Let's get now to to meditation. Yes, I hope it's clear enough what we will do, and I will guide the first part and will let you just experience for the second part. For this, we will close our eyes and relax. We will use the meditation that we did last time to open our heart, to be present, to enter that Hridaya, that space of the heart, from which bhavana is much easier. With an open heart, it's easier to use your mystical intuition. So for this, we are aware of that gap between inhalation and exhalation in the middle of the chest, a little to the right. We feel at first the place in which one becomes the other, that in between, that middle ground. And then we feel that short moment of void in which we are suspended between breathings, in which our mind for a moment it's still, perfectly still. And now we will do this bhavana. I'm consciousness and bliss without form. I'm Shiva, Chidananda Rupah, Shivoham, Shivoham. We open ourselves to this possibility from the heart. We are consciousness, we are bliss. We understand by being, not by thinking, not by creating a story. From time to time, repeating, I am consciousness and bliss without form, I'm Shiva, can help us to get back to this existence as consciousness and bliss, which is the most inner way of being, Sat Chitananda, existence, consciousness and bliss. And now slowly we get back, keeping that awareness of consciousness and bliss without form as our inner nature, and we open our eyes. I hope it was for you as beautiful as it was for me. And don't you worry, this concept will be more clear as the time passes, and we will learn about more things about Shaiva philosophy, because for now a lot of things are still missing in this exposition. But I wanted to present this concept now in the beginning, so it will be then used again and again and explained from different angles, so it can become a tool to your meditation arsenal. And for this reason, sure, maybe weren't enough explanation or clear enough, but you will see it will become clearer. And for sure, in tradition, bhavana is like a fuzzy thing, not explained in detail, because its nature is like this fuzziness, opening and just experiencing things without the need to explain them in detail. And was another question that I let it for the end, because it's a bit like, you will see. Do you receive the teaching about Kashmir from Sahaja or also from other teachers? From whom Sahaja received the teachings about Kashmir Shaivism? There is a direct oral tradition from, for example, Swami Lakshmanju or Lillian Silburn, or it was revealed in another way, for example, books. I asked because I want to understand if there is a direct lineage or not. Thank you for clarifying this. So, yes, Swami Lakshmanju was considered like the last Shaiva master, but even he wasn't like a complete master in this, because even from the time of Abhinavagupta, a short period after Abhinavagupta, the initiation, the direct initiation in Kashmir Shaivism was lost. What Swami Lakshmanju was practicing was more like an yoga of Kashmir Shaivism and not this direct lineage from Abhinavagupta. That was lost. And sure, I was speaking with Sahaja, and wasn't like a formal thing, but we discussed it a lot. And he also known Lillian Silburn and meet with her at some point. But I want to be clear that these lessons are not about becoming Kashmir Shaiva, but about using that wisdom and that knowledge that Kashmir Shaiva offer us to deepen our practice and meditation, our understanding of the world and the way that meditation work and such. We want to remain Hridaya practitioners, and for sure Kashmir Shaivism had a big influence of the way in which Hridaya was created. And like you said, books were very important because again they open this bhavana which I spoke about it. When you read and at some point you surrender yourself to the teaching without trying to just understand from the mental point of view, but trying to understand, sure is a cliche, but trying to understand with the heart. And in this way you can discover a lot of things. And sure, practicing, because like I told you about this bhavana, very interesting thing that I thought about it and research about it a lot. And then when I spoke with Sahaja, he also had a lot of things and also give some lectures about it without me knowing. So it's like you reach a point in which your practice catch up with your understanding, and the other way around, your understanding catch up with your practice. So for this reason it's important to read a lot, to have a lot of discussion with other person, so that your knowledge it's on the same level with your practice. Again and again in the tradition they speak about this importance of having both. In Shaiva they are called Paurusha Jnana and Bauda Jnana. Paurusha means the knowledge obtained through practice, and Bauda through reasoning and reading and finding about it, like satsangs and lectures and all this. So if you have other things to ask, or if you want to share your experience with the meditation, you can open your mic or write down. For the future I will try to find a way to have like this kind of whiteboard, but everybody can see, and in this way you will remember some words and search them afterwards. But sure, the way that I thought about these lessons is that they form a whole. So we will go back and forth between what we learn in this. So if now you don't understand something, just have patience, and things will become clearer until the end of these lessons. We will meet again on the, I don't know, next week, and then here in Kamala Center we will have the retreat between the new this year and next year in the New Year's Eve with Sahaja. So I think 1 or 2 weeks we will not be able to meet, and then I think in January, let me see, I think they will announce you from Hridaya, but just to know. So we will meet on 22. Sure, if you cannot, you will receive the recording. And then I think on the 12th of January. So on 29 December and 5 January, we will have this retreat with Sahaja here, and we will not be able to continue our meetings, but then on 12th January we will meet again. So next week and on 12th January. Okay, another question. Someone just showed appreciation for the meditation, and someone asked, recently I have been with a friend who during sleep experienced convulsion. His lips turned blue, stopped breathing, and had a hard time speaking after we took him to the hospital. When he came out a few days later, he said it was a Kundalini awakening. Have you heard of it manifesting like this? I didn't heard about this kind of manifestation, and I don't think it's about this. Sure, unfortunately, I heard about a lot of things that they think that it is Kundalini's fault, but usually there are other explanations. So in this case, turned blue, stop breathing is more like a sleep apnea than Kundalini, you know. Sure, awakening Kundalini before its time can be dangerous, but it's more like a mental danger, not a physical one. And if you are doing yoga and prepare your body and mind, it's usually a pain-free process. So if you experience this kind of things, I don't think it's about Kundalini, or sure, I don't know. I cannot know for sure, but it doesn't seems like this. You can experience pain or suffering, but that is from the impurities, and it's more like in your mind and not in your body. Someone says, after a 10 days silent retreat of Hridaya, I started to have a loud silence inside me. Is this silence the presence with capital P? And what should I do with it? How to use it in my practice? Yes, this kind of loud silence can be named presence with capital letter, and the way you can use it, it's to repeat its experience, because in a lot of way, when you have this kind of peak experiences, is like when you are entering in a new city. You have to become accustomed with the streets, with way to get to places, and for this you have to walk about. In the same way, when this kind of deep experience appear, you have to learn to get back to it, but not is not like duplicate it, like repeat it identically, but recognize it, because it's like that city. You can walk in the morning, you can walk in the night. The city seems different, but it's the same city. In this way, this silence can appear in various ways to your mind, depending on your mental state of the moment. Because, and this is an important thing to understand. A lot of these experiences are beyond mind, and then the mind try to explain them, to put them in words, but it depends on the way that mind is in that moment. So the story that the mind tells us about an experience can be different depending on how we are in that moment. And the person continues to ask, what is this silence? The way that you express it, loud silence, it's about that. They call it the sound of silence, nada, or anahata nada, the sound without cause. And this silence, this loud silence, is this sound of consciousness. Nada is the sound, is the vibration of consciousness. Is not like a sound you hear with your ears, but there is this presence, this intensity of presence that is in this silence, and this is called nada. The sound of silence. It's a very, very beautiful metaphor, the sound of silence. Okay, I think it's late, so we will stop here and see you again on the 2nd or on the 22 December. And again, if you have question, you can write them on email. I think it's on the Hridaya website, that email address, and I will try to answer you as quick as I can. And sure, you can ask the question when we see each other again next week. So have a beautiful evening or a beautiful day, depending where you are, and namaste.